Hi guys, Phil here from the Mindful Mover, and today we're going to go over one of our first progressions for the front lever row, which is the arc row. We're going to go over the progressions for it, how to do it properly, and how to apply accommodating resistance so you can get the most out of each repetition that you do. Let's do this. So let's go over how to do it. And to do that, let's break the movement down into 3 parts. The initial position that we're going to hold with a nice isometric hold. Then we're going to have a grinding concentric. And an involuntary eccentric. So part number 1, we're going to have that isometric hold. We're going to lower the rings down so they're about level with our lower abdomen or our hips. And we're going to grab the rings with our hands pronated so that our palms are facing down towards the ground. We're going to put our feet in front of us so that we're in a nice diagonal or horizontal position. It can be very helpful to make sure that your feet are braced against a solid object so that you don't slide. Once you're in position here, you're going to squeeze the shoulders back and push the rings down as hard as you can with your arms straight. Remember to keep your arms straight during that initial push. It's very important for the front lever gains. Now from there, hold that position for 2 to 5 seconds depending on your repetition. Alright, part number 2. Ready for our grinding concentric. So we're in position with our shoulders squeezed back and the arms straight and pushing down. We're going to then drive the elbows back like we want to elbow somebody in the gut behind us as we try to touch the rings down to our hips. Now that's going to be very, very difficult because we're not going to have much leverage. On the way up, you are going to get stuck and not be able to touch those rings down towards your hips. That's okay. When that happens, you're going to settle for touching the rings a little bit higher than your hips. And from there, as you continue to pull, you'll probably get stuck again. At that point, repeat the process. Settle for touching the rings a little bit higher and higher towards the chest until you get those rings to touch your body. Number 3, involuntary eccentric. So we got the rings touching someplace on our body. What we're going to do is then take the rings and push them down until the leverage decreases so much that our body is no longer able to hold that position and we're going to start to fall. And as you're falling, you want to pull against that fall as hard as you can so that the fall is involuntary, but it takes a long time to reach the very bottom. Now let's go over some key notes for this exercise. Key note number 1, make sure that the entire movement is a massive grind. So avoid doing explosive reps where you're flopping up and flopping down to the bottom. This exercise is not about getting repetitions in, it's about getting maximum intensity in. So make sure that the way up is a grind. Make sure that the way down is involuntary and you're pulling against it. Make sure that every repetition starts off with that 2 to 5 second pause at the bottom position where you're working really hard the whole time. You're getting quality reps in, not chasing numbers. Key note number 2, make sure that you keep your head relatively neutral. By that, I mean keep your head in line with the rest of your body. During the movement, you're going to be very tempted to look down at your feet and make sure that they're still there as you're performing your arc row. I promise that during your repetitions, no one's going to come over and steal your feet. They will be there when you finish the set. So make sure you keep your head neutral and in line with the rest of your body so you don't hurt yourself while you're doing this. Keynote number 3. This one's going to be mostly applicable to people who are just starting this exercise and who are going to be starting a bit diagonal towards the ground. What you're going to want to make sure you do is when you're pulling up to the top, make sure that your body never reaches fully vertical at the top of the movement. If that happens, what will end up happening is you'll see slack occur in the rings, and you'll probably feel most of the muscular tension go away. Avoid that by making sure that you're diagonal even near the top of the movement. Your body should never go fully vertical. Always make sure you're a little bit diagonal so you keep tension in the rings and tension in your muscles the entire movement. So that right there is the technique for the arc row and how to get the most intensity out of each of the repetitions possible. Let's talk progressions now. For progression, it's pretty simple. All you're going to do is, as you get stronger, get more and more and more parallel to the ground. At the beginning, you might start off kind of diagonal. By the end of your arc row journey, you might be parallel to the ground with your feet elevated on a bench. And there you have it. That's the arc row. That's the first progression you can use towards your front lever journey. So stay tuned for more of the big 5 strength exercises, more accommodating resistance, and more ways to work smarter and harder. Woo woo!